We're good? Awesome. Let's move on to the next element. Okay, from 1 to 4, which one often has the most punch? It is very dependent on the audience, depending on who you're speaking to and what it is that you're going for. You find that in general, for professional speakers and every time, most of the time, we find that they are there to inspire or motivate. That's why we've got a lot of motivational speakers or inspirational speakers. But generally, it depends with the audience. If I'm a salesperson, when I stand up, I need to just make sure I make a sale. And through that, I use entertainment. If I'm a leader and I'm addressing my team, I need to inform them of what's happening. So, for example, currently, you'll find that our ministers, or at least the Minister of Health, is consistently coming up to fulfill the general purpose of information, to inform us about what's happening. So you identify depending on the audience and what the subject is that you are engaged in. I hope that answers you. Awesome. Then let's move into asking yourself. We are going to now start coming up with a presentation. What is the main purpose of your presentation? Choose one. We're going to come up with a mock presentation. Choose one. What is the main purpose of your presentation? Remember, you're choosing just one. Awesome. Beautiful. Keep that in mind. We're going to now explore the other type of purpose, which is the specific purpose. Now we're now going deeper. Remember, this is the very same process I take. Once I've identified my main purpose, I now go on to identify my specific purpose. Now, my specific purpose would be, what do I want? Or in this case, if you look here, what do you want your audience to do, feel, say, or see after listening to your presentation? What do I want my audience to do, feel, see, or say after listening to my presentation? What is it exactly that I want my audience to do, feel, think, say, or see after listening to my presentation or speech? In this case, remember, you came up with a general purpose. Your general purpose was to inspire. Now you can inspire people to do anything and everything, to move mountains, to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, to build an empire. You can inspire to do anything, but you now want to be specific. You want to zone in on something. You want to inspire people to have healthy relationships. You want to persuade people to buy your product. You want to entertain them about the current affairs in Africa. You want to inform them about the current COVID-19 pandemic. What do you want your audience to do, feel, say, or see after listening to your presentation? Now, in many cases, this is the challenge, or one of the first challenges that you find yourself in, because a lot of us want to give out a lot. And here's the challenge. You know that your specific purpose is possibly sharp enough if it is written in 10 words or less. There is a speech by the 2018 runner-up of the world champion, 2017 runner-up of the World Championships of Public Speaking, Aaron Beverly, who was now the 2019 champion. And he brings out exactly something that I think speaks to this. Just because you say more does not necessarily mean people will remember what you said. Just because you say more does not necessarily mean people will remember what you said. A lot of us find it very natural to say, I want to tell people about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And by so doing, at the end of your presentation, you may have lost out your audience, or the audience does not necessarily know what they want them to get. So your ability to identify what in some cases you might want to refer to as a slogan or your headline. You see, with a newspaper headline, it's most likely newspaper headlines are very short but to the point. They speak to exactly what's happening, right? 2 new COVID-19 cases in Soweto. It's specific, it's clear. You want to make people know about this. So what you then have is, if you put those two together, if you put the general purpose and your specific purpose together, you now have a clear sentence of what you are going to be doing in your presentation or in your speech. For example, I'm going to be informing being the general purpose, and then what do I want my audience to do, feel, think, or say, or see? I'm going to be informing them about the 2 new COVID-19 cases in Soweto or in Alex. By the way, that's not right. That's not true. Thank you, Lebohang. I'll answer your question just now. If you put your general purpose and your specific purpose together, you will now have a clear sentence of what you are going to be presenting on. I'm going to inspire people to move mountains. 10 words or less. I'm going to persuade people to buy my house. I'm going to entertain people about the new Apple products. I'm going to inform people about the new epidemic or pandemic that we're facing. What you're simply doing is being very clear that, yes, I'm inspiring people. I want to inspire people, but what do you want to inspire people about? And this could be a guide to help you find that. What do I want to inspire people to do, think, feel, or say, or see after listening to my presentation? Having said that, Lebogang asks, is it wise to sell or persuade without inspiring your audience? Again, Lebogang, it is not a requirement to either sell with persuasion. Some people sell just with entertainment. They're very funny. By the time after you've laughed so hard, then they make their sale or they close the sale. So it's dependent on your persona or your style of sales. You can sell by informing people, and sometimes informing people about something that they really need that they didn't realize they need. You can easily make a sale. Sometimes you can persuade someone to buy something by entertainment, and entertainment, by the way, does not only mean humor. You can bring in some horror to say, if you don't have a mask, you are the next person to get the virus, and you scare someone and then they buy. So you're just looking into some of that. After all, they say people buy or people react because of either they are seeking pleasure or they are trying to move away from any pain that they may encounter or they might be found in that compromising position. So the pain or pleasure kind of situation perhaps is considered. But if you look, if I know you did the legacy program, if you go back to project 9 of the legacy program, CC9, it talks about the elements of sales logic and emotion and how you can bring into that. We're going to have a conversation about that, I think, in the next 3 or so weeks or so. Having said that, I seem to be continuously breaking up. I hope it's not affecting everyone. Sorry about that, Oscar. I hope, though, you are able to follow through with these conversations that we're having in between. Having said that, I'm going to challenge you to write your specific purpose now. You remember you wrote your general purpose. Now, what is the specific purpose? So for those that are going to be informed, what are you going to be informing us about? For those that are going to be entertaining, what are you entertaining us on? For those that are going to be persuading or selling, what are you selling or what are you persuading us to do or to say or to see? For those that are going to be inspiring, what are you inspiring us to do? And I'm looking forward to seeing your specific purpose in the chat box. Once you've written your specific purpose, I'm looking forward to seeing it in the chat box. Thank you, Lorraine. Inspire people to feel worthy. Beautiful. I'm going to inspire people to stop running from pain. Lovely, Emil. Icebreaker. Yes, Estelle, I'm going to inform people of who you are or who I am. I'm going to inform people about the pros and cons of working from home. Beautiful. And Oscar, I'm going to inspire people to become overcomers. Beautiful. So already you've got your premise, or you've got what you call now your purpose is quite clear from these. Now, having done this, this is now where you have identified your purpose. It's beautiful. It's good. Any questions before I move on from here? Any questions? None. All right. Once you've got your general and specific purpose together, the next thing is let's look at how your skeleton structure could look like. Now, there are many ways to build structure. Again, there's a resource. If you reach out to me, I'll be able to find it and send it to you that has different kinds of structure. But based on what we've just done, I'm going to take you through what the general easy structure that I personally use that I find very useful or valuable in many cases, which covers the emotion side of things and the logical side of the brain. And it is by applying the golden rule of the power of three that we learn along the way. And the power of three speaks to, firstly, we should be able now to have our specific purpose. Remember, and you've got your specific purpose. And I'm going to challenge you to write your specific purpose on another sheet of paper or on your sheet of paper and put a circle in the middle of your sheet of paper. Just put around the specific purpose. Write it in that circle. Right? Once you've got your specific purpose, okay, I've just asked everyone to please, on a separate piece of paper, write the specific purpose in a circled format or circle in your specific purpose on the center page. Once you've written your specific purpose, the first thing that we want to know is what fact supports this. And this is something that I've come to learn that helps a lot. Now, what fact supports what you're saying? What are the statistics? What are the factuals that you can bring to life? Now, this number one element is meant to feed the logical brain. Why do we want to feed the logical brain? We want to build credibility. So, having said that, in your speech or in achieving your purpose, in selling whatever you're selling, we want to understand what fact supports this. Now, my specific purpose for this presentation is to persuade every listener to wear a pair of glasses. My specific purpose is to my general is to persuade, and specific purpose to wear a pair of glasses. Now, how am I going to achieve this? What fact supports what I'm going to be selling? Now, in my mind, I'm going to use a fact from Forbes. I read an article from Forbes magazine in the 2019 October issue, and it said that 80% of people who wear glasses are considered intelligent. 80% of people who wear glasses, according to Forbes, are considered intelligent. Now, there's a question. I'm just going to check. Not yet, Yonela. Your personal experience count as facts that will support your purpose? Not yet. So this one, we want something that you are detached from. That's something that you did not tamper with. We want something that we can go and prove. And hence, if you look at it, I also used a reputable source, or at least what I think would be considered a reputable source. So if I came about and said, according to Daily Sun or Daily Skinner, 80% of people who wear glasses are considered intelligent, would you believe the fact? Would you trust it? Likely not. So in most cases, if some would, in most cases, you've got to also check where your factuals are coming from. So in this case, I've chosen Forbes because I think most likely people who I'm speaking to respect Forbes. So you've got to look out for that. Number two, around facts that you might want to think a lot more if you want to really hit the nail. Challenge yourself to find facts that speak to the people on the ground. So, for example, according to Business Day South Africa, if you start a business in 10 days, you're likely to get profit of at least 10% per month. Now, this is a source of something that's in South Africa, and I'm speaking to South Africans. If I'm going to say, according to New York Times, starting a business in 10 days will get you 10% profit, it's unlikely to connect with your audience because New York Times is miles and miles away versus Business Day South Africa. So you want to also ensure that when you identify or when you choose facts, try and identify facts that are relevant or geographically and also to your audience. I think that would help in just making an impact in that space. So try and identify facts and also a credible source for that matter to help you bring out the fact. So that's the first thing that you would put in. The second element that I'm going to speak to is that of your credential or your testimony around this. Now, this is again, Yonela, speaking to your point. This is now where you feed the emotional brain of thought, or you start feeding it. This is where you share with us your testimony or your credentials that you've got on this. Why are you the one telling us on this? What experience do you have on what you're sharing with us? So you've already told us that according to Forbes, 80% of people who wear glasses are considered intelligent. I'm also now going to come and share with you that if I look at it in my high school, the top 10, all the people who were in the top 10 year in, year out, they wore glasses. And come to think of it, no one in the bottom 10 wore glasses. The top 10, everyone had glasses, had a pair of glasses. The bottom 10, none of them had glasses. Wait, that's not all. In my family, the two brothers that wear glasses are actuarial scientists or whatever it is that is considered something that's done by intelligent people. The ones that don't wear glasses, they are the problems in our family. And by so doing, I am almost coming up to share the credibility of my experience. By the way, yes, Lorraine, I wear glasses. I'm coming up to share my experience based on the surroundings. Remember, I've given you the factuals. Now I'm sharing my experience. When you share your experience, you're almost challenging me to look into possibly when I talked about my high school class, possibly your mind took you to your high school class and tried to identify if people wore glasses, if you have, and in this space, in your family, you also possibly challenge your mind took you to a point where you're identifying if in your family anyone who's not so clever wears glasses. And by so doing, I'm now building an emotional rapport with you. But that's not enough. You want to seal the deal. Remember, my purpose in this case is to persuade. So, what am I going to do next? I'm going to bring the third element, which is the what's in it for me. Now, what's in it for me is not me, the speaker. Remember, when you are a speaker, it's not about you, it's about the audience. It's not about you, it's about the audience. So the speaker is asking you, what's in it for me? Why should I listen to you? Or why should I really buy into what you're saying? So that's where I'm going to come and say, if you want to be considered intelligent, Forbes has proven it. I've shared with you my experiences of everything that's around me. If you want to be considered intelligent listener, then you need to buy a pair of glasses. So I would have fed the logical mind with the fact. I would have brought in the emotional aspect with my credentials, my experience of this, and then I bring in the element of what's in it for me, which is what's the benefit to the listener. Now, a lot of times we come up with inspiration or motivation or persuasion, but we forget to make it relevant or make it come to the face of the person who is dealing with the challenge. So, why should I buy a mask? If you want to stay safe and be precautious about the virus, you've got to have a mask and gloves. If you are going to, what do you want people to do? If you want, why should people want to live a pain-free life? Because pain causes distress and all sorts. So you want to bring that what's in it for me element. You want to answer the question, so what? Or what then? And once you've done that, you reinforce your points 1, 2, 3. That's almost where we talk about the conclusion or the summation. You want to reinforce your points. And by reinforcing your points, you're simply trying to hit the nail on the head to try and get me, the listener, to ensure that I got the main points. What fact supports what you're asking us to do? What credentials or what testimony, what right do you have to be speaking to us about this? How do you know? Have you seen it happening? Do you have experience in this? And lastly, what's in it for me? Why should I be listening to you? Why should I buy glasses, as I said? And that you then are likely able to achieve your purpose. Any questions on this model? Any questions? Doesn't seem like I see any, or are we typing? Yes. So point four almost can be, you can call it a summary if you feel. Yes. So it's just you're summarizing. So you're summarizing point one, two, and three, and you're putting it all together. Yes, you can end the three. So I think what I love to share is it's not a, it's, you are not forced or you're not required to use it this way to say if you start with two and you end with one. I'm simply saying these are the three main elements that I recommend that you have in your presentation or in your speeches to make possibly the maximum impact. In short, I'm simply saying make sure you cover the emotional brain and you cover the logical brain to put that all together in looking into it. So how do I put this into practice when doing an icebreaker? Again, it depends on the path that you're taking or in with what you want to achieve with your icebreakers. Generally, with an icebreaker, you want to look into, for example, you want to get to know about you, right? So you could possibly put this in if we were to do an icebreaker, you're going to share us what facts about you. I was born there. We can prove that you did not tamper with when you were born. This is where it is. Because you've got a birth certificate. For example, if we're really going to go that technical, according to my birth certificate, issued by the registrar of whatever, I was born on the 8th of June 2020. What credentials do you have on this? In my experience, I've grown up to learn that life is tough. I struggled with this, I struggled with that, or I've learned that life is a journey that we continuously learn, and I've learned from A, B, C, D. That's what you're looking into. And why are you sharing this with us? This too is part of my learning, and I'm inviting you, listeners, fellow members, to help me in my learning. That is why I'm sharing this into with you, and then you reinforce your points in a sense. That is if you want, but remember, these are some of the techniques that you may consider using. Another question is, how do I build this model into the speech, introduction, body, and conclusion? That we're going to cover in the second webinar that we're going to do next Monday as well. However, you almost have a bit of some structure even with this. So you are looking into, you could start with effects. So from one of the projects, again, if you did the legacy program, it would tell you that when you're starting your opening, you start with either a powerful quote or something, a powerful statement or a powerful action and so forth that you can bring in. You can introduce with us with a startling fact about what's happening, right? And then take us into your experience of what you're telling us about the different parts and experiences, and then give us what's in it for me to listen, and then that could possibly be part of your conclusion. So there are many ways to play around this. We're not going to really focus into the structure of it this today, but in the next webinar that we're going to do, we're going to speak into the structure. I hope that helps give you an idea at this stage, Ndomi. Awesome, great. All right, having said that, so I'm just going to show just an example of another way you can build in structure, or just for you to be able to identify that you are grounded with your structure. If I say make America great again, who comes to mind? If I say make America great again, who comes to mind? Trump. Trump, yes. All right. And Hillary Clinton, what was Hillary Clinton's campaign? Anyone remembers? Without going on to Google? If you don't remember, simply say, I don't remember. Nope. That should challenge all the leaders here to think about whether they are giving speeches with a clear purpose. But anyhow, oh, she did have It was something around togetherness and but that's not what she represented. But let me share with you some of the things that I thought made Trump's speech more prominent than, or Trump's impact was more prominent simply because of his speeches. So Trump wanted to make America great again. So what did he do? He was building a wall between Mexico and the United States. Why? So that he can make America great again. He was chasing all foreigners away. Why? So that he can make America great again. He was increasing import taxes. Why? So that he can make America great again. And he reinforced there are many other elements that you put in or many other measures that you build in. But if you look at it, what am I trying to illustrate from this? If you look into this, these are now the points in your speech that you can bring out. So you could have more points, but be careful that the more you get to 4, 5, and 6, 7, 10 points, you then are likely to lose your audience. Remember, just because you say more does not necessarily mean people will remember what you said. So you want to make it as close as possible to 3 or keep it to 3. Whether it's a 5 to 7 minute presentation or a 25-minute keynote or an hour keynote, I always try by all means, whether I'm presenting, to try and see if I can build in my points to maximum 3 so that I can keep people on the journey as I speak. So you look out for those elements. So in this case, I gave an example of Donald Trump, who had his campaign, Make America Great Again. If you see the things the actions that he was going to do, they feed back into his specific purpose. He was going to build increase import taxes so that people can buy locally, and buying externally was going to be more expensive. So that is how it was going to make America great again. Was chasing away all foreigners so that he could create more opportunities and whatnot for the Americans. So it was going to make America great again. But if you take note, if you remember vividly, a lot of people were very angry or very frustrated and possibly infuriated by what Donald Trump was bringing to the party. Why? It's the power of knowing your audience. And this is the last bonus tip that I'm just going to rush through. I'm going to share this presentation with everyone in case where we may have lost out. I'm hoping that you'll be able to follow through, and I'm happy to answer questions. Now, Donald Trump gave this presentation. Who was he speaking to? Who did he want this message to land on? Any thoughts? Who was Donald Trump's primary audience? His supporters, Americans, right? Yes, Americans. And possibly you might find that this is what his focus was on. He was focusing on the people who had the votes, and the people who had the votes did the voting. We're not going to go directly into the politics side of things, but here's the thing: you know your audience, and how do you work around that? If you have an audience level, if your audience level is at a higher level than you, maintain your level. That means speak your language that you understand, that you're fully comprehensive on. A lot of times we find that if our audience is at a higher level, we're challenged, or we want to try and use bombastic words or bigger words to try and match our audience. That is adding yourself unnecessary pressure, because you would have the challenge of trying to buy into what they're going to be saying, or if they're to question you, you might not know how to respond. So I always recommend, if your audience level is at a higher level than you, maintain your level. If your audience level is at a lower knowledge level, please come down to their level. If your audience level is at a lower level than you are at, so if I'm going to be speaking to a grade 1 pupil, I've got to come down to that grade 1 pupil's level. If I'm going to be speaking to people who are in the government officials, who have been in the senior government officials, and I'm sharing this with them, I stick to my level because perhaps I may not be able to compete with their intellect. So I always try and work around that. So if you're speaking to an audience level higher than you, maintain your level because that's where your comfort is. If you're speaking to an audience that's at a lower level than you are, come down to their level. Please don't use bombastic words on them just to showcase what you are or how better you are than them. Remember, communication is effective only when the receiver receives what it is that you intended to send. Communication is only effective or when the receiver receives what it is that you were trying to send. So look out to avoid situations where you're like, I was trying to say, or what I'm trying to say, or what I meant was. You avoid that by possibly coming down to their level and knowing your audience. If you're doing a presentation and let's say you are not sure before the presentation, this comes in many forms. Before the presentation, do a pre-assessment, find out who you'll be speaking to, the type of audience, especially for keynote speakers or professional speakers. But sometimes, let's assume you didn't have that opportunity. If you're a professional speaker, I always recommend go some time earlier to wherever conference or whatever conference you're going to, have coffee with them, have a chat with them to gauge how well or what level this audience is at. So if it's before the presentation, let's assume you were not so sure or you have just been asked to speak, you were not planning to speak and you're unsure of the audience and you're already called up to give your presentation. This is where I suggest you use engagement techniques to gauge interest. How many of you have ever been to Zimbabwe? By asking such questions, I'm able to identify if people will understand my speech about Matopo Hills, or if people will understand my speech about the Victoria Falls, because I've been able to question those questions. I've been able to ask those questions. So try and identify at what level your audience is at and speak to that level. If your audience is at the same level as you are, then you can use your lingo. This is where if you are both in the Toastmasters and you've been in Toastmasters for a while, you can now start calling each other DTMs and CCs and PL level 1 or level 2. But if they are coming to Toastmasters for the very first time, please avoid calling people DTMs or asking them the TM of the day because it will just be jargon to the person listening. This is all I had to share with you today. In the next webinar, which is on Monday next week, I will be sharing more around how to build in your structure or the different types of structure that you can consider and which one works for different purposes or for different audiences as from my experience and from my learning from Toastmasters and the speeches that I've given. I will take, are there any questions at this point in time? And you are welcome to possibly unmute if you feel like typing will take longer. Just raise your hand and then unmute. If no questions, just a thumbs up will show if you're good.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, where you say that we can use audience engagement techniques, is this where you then ask questions? How do you then engage with them if you're not unsure, you don't know them quite well?
Right. Yes, so this is where we ask questions. So we're going to talk about it. I think that will be most definitely in the next segment that we're going to do where we talk about structure. So you want to be able to know your audience or the level of your audience. So like an example that I shared, my speech is going to be about the mighty Victoria Falls. But if I'm not sure whether the people that I'm speaking to know what the Victoria Falls is or where it is. So perhaps I could use, my first question would be raise your hand if you've ever been to Zimbabwe, right? And by the number of hands, I can tell whether I'm speaking to an audience who know whether the Victoria Falls is in the south or it's in the east or it's in possibly elsewhere. And those kind of activities or those kind of questions will help you identify possibly what level of intelligence or knowledge your audience is at, right?
You'll
How
have
many
to
of
then
us, sorry?
you'll have to then quickly adapt your speech.
Yes, so you work along those lines, and hence usually you'll be at that stage once you're comfortable with learning techniques in adaptation of your speeches and being able to be flexible in your presentations. That's where you'll find yourself in that position. If you're not, so for example, in my case, when I started with professional speaking, I strictly would make sure that I've questioned the organizer of any conference, of an event. Who am I speaking to? What do they do? How senior are they? Etc. Etc. In training, one way I do this if I'm going to be doing corporate training at a corporate. One way that I do what one pre-activity that I do is I ask for the delegates' names. And when I ask for the delegates' names, or when I get the delegates' names, obviously some will already come with their titles and everything. I do a bit of private investigation, checking on LinkedIn, what they do, how they do, or what they do, or I do a research on the company itself, and I try and match that. And in the first segment of my training, I still use engagement techniques to just confirm at what level I'm dealing with. So those are some of the different elements that you can use to apply that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure. All right. Thank you everyone for joining in. I hope this was insightful and valuable. I'm glad that you were here and you possibly found value. I'm just going to post my number in the group chat for those that might need to get additional clarity on this episode. I forgot to record it from the beginning, but the rest of the recording will be available, and I'm going to share my presentation to anyone. So feel free to WhatsApp me if you're going to be looking for any additional elements, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you the next one for next Monday. Have a good evening and all the best.